So the first elder is Verna Kashane, and then we'll move over to Peter Bigstone, and then Carol Estrel Shannon? Carol Estrel Shannon, and then Heartland Goodtrack is MIA. So we've asked, as we all do in conferences, we've always have backup speakers. And so we've asked Cy if he would come in, and Cy Standing, if he would come in and share some language from his perspective. So I'm going to give the microphone, the mobile one here, to Verna first. And let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. I always feel a little bit not confident when I sit with elders, because I never consider myself an elder. I do keep language, I do keep culture, and I thank everybody for listening and for attending this. I grew up in Kiniston. I was the oldest of 9 kids. My mom and dad were from Yellow Quill, and my cookum raised me for the first 6 years of my life. So I spoke nothing but Soto. When I went to residential school, that's the only language I knew. And I went to Muskowgan Residential School. In that first 6 years is where I learned all of my culture and all of what it meant to be a First Nations person. My mom gave me away to my cookum because my cookum was a medicine woman, and she wanted me to learn the medicines from my grandmother. And so that's how my journey started, was to learn medicines with her. So I stayed with her on the reserve. This was, and I'm sure there's people here who have a similar kind of background. There was no power, no electricity, no lights, no running water, none of that. We lived in a mud shack in the winter time, and then we moved to just a standard wood house in the summertime. So we were rich, we had 2 houses. My grandpa earned money through making pickets for the local farmers around there. And he grew a garden in the summer. He had 2 horses. So I watched his relationship with the horses. And Grandma picked medicines and berries, and we went, every morning we would go to our snares and get our rabbits. We had to beat the wild animals to those snares, because if we didn't get there early enough, they would sometimes be eaten. So we had to get there before they did. And I shadowed her. I was her little shadow. So everything she did, everywhere she went, I went. And this is years now. I'm thinking, years later, I started thinking about what it was growing up on the reserve with my grandma before I went to residential school. What was it about that whole thing that made me who I am, that made me Anishinaabe? And the first thing that came to mind was my relationships. My relationships, they're one of the most valuable things with First Nations. We're related not just to one another, but to the earth, to the sky, to everything around us. We're connected, even to the animals. And I say I watched my grandfather and how he treated his animals. He regularly smudged his animals, and he regularly braided ribbons into their manes and their tails. And they loved him, and he loved them, and you could see that connection between them. And I remember as a little girl, when my grandfather died, the horses were hitched to the side of the wagon. They were just connected so they wouldn't wander off. They weren't actually hitched up to the wagon that was going to take him to his gravesite. But I got on the wagon and I was touching the horses, and both of them, they were crying. They had tears. And so that was part of me learning what it means to be spirit. Spirit is not, it's not just the soul. It's not just in human beings. It's in everything. And that's part of our culture. So that's what I learned through that. my grandma, her and I would go and get sweetgrass, and she taught me how to pick sweetgrass, how not to step over anything that I was going to pick from. So there was a patch ahead of me. I stayed behind it, and I didn't pick behind me at all because you don't step over anything. A lot of what Rosalie said this morning I could really relate to because it was similar. So we would pick medicines, and Grandma would sit with the plants, and she communicated with them in some way that I don't understand, but she knew what these medicines were for. I have friends on the reserve who said, "That was my doctor. Your grandma was my doctor." And so that part was really interesting as well. We picked berries. We did all the things that women did way back when. We cleaned hides. We made leather. We tanned it. We made dried meat. Gipanizaweyang, they call it. Panizaweng is cutting into thin slices. We used every part of the animal that I could think of. My grandpa made my own, they call it mata igan, which is the tool that was used for taking the fur off the animals. My grandma and grandpa made the, I don't even know what you call it, but it was like a rack. So it was in four. It was the hide was tied onto those four pieces of wood, and that was leaned up against other trees at an angle that my grandma, she was tiny, that she could climb up and start, and I would be allowed to help her, but I had to be, she was always warning me, don't make a hole, as if I could, because I was just a kid, a little kid, not very strong at all. But that was a warning I kept getting, don't make a hole. So we would do that. We would do the hides. And then we had to go fetch water. We had to go fetch wood. Those are daily chores. And my grandma would put it on the sawhorse and cut the wood. So I knew everything, all the words to that. And then we'd get visitors. And one of the other things I remember really clearly, and this is about our culture again, generally speaking, is that on the reserve in Kiniston, I never knew anybody by their name. I only knew them by my relationship to them. And that's what I'm saying. Relationship was one of the top things that we had that was of value to us. And so I only knew people as Gizise, Kibabaes, Kimamaes, Gizigus, Kinim, Ksae, Kichimes. That's the only Gokum, Kimisomis. That's the only way I knew people. And so when I tried to talk to them or whatever, I would call them by that. Nimisomis, Kitan Kubichigan. I didn't have too many of those. Yes, I still did. And that's an interesting word, Nan Kubichigan. I have 2 children. My son is deceased now. But they each had 2 children. They each had a boy and a girl. And then later on, my son found out he had another daughter that he wasn't aware of for a long time. And from that daughter, she has 2 children. So he had grandchildren, my son. And those are my Dan Kubitsiganak. And the word Dan Kubitsigan means my tie. And when they talk to me, they call me Dan Kubitsigan. Or we shorten it to Kubitsigan because it's hard for them. But that word means tie, my tie to the past and their tie to the future. And I really love that about our language because it's descriptive and it means something. Words mean something in our language. And sometimes it's really hard to convey what that meaning is unless you know the root word. So Dan Kubitsigan, the root word is Anhakubitung, which is to tie together. Yeah. So that's how I learned about who I am. And by the time I went to residential school, and they were telling us in residential school that we were heathens, we were pagans, we were savages, all of that, I didn't believe them. I didn't believe a single word of it. I just thought, well, they're just mistaken. They don't know any better. They don't know how we live on the reserve. They don't know the care and the love and the community that goes with that. Also, part of the community was the one thing that I really love about our people is that at that time, I think it's changed since then because of all the interference, but at that time they knew how to grow a human being. They knew how to grow a child into a real human being. And they covered all 4 aspects of the human being, right? The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. And they made sure that child developed in those 4 areas without ever dishonoring the sovereignty and the agency of that child. That child, the Munyasak said we were indulgent in our children, with our children. But they weren't being indulgent, they were just allowing the child to grow and develop on their own, you know, because they recognized that spirit in that child. And because of that, they allowed them to just do whatever, other than teaching them, don't hurt yourself, don't hurt another kid or anybody else, and don't hurt animals. You know, those are the things they said. Those are the spiritual laws that we were given. So we've been given natural laws, spiritual laws, and so on. And that's how they raise their children to understand all of that. I went to ceremony, I listened at ceremonies. They used to tell me, Scott, so they'd tell me, sit still and listen. And I would try. Sometimes you couldn't hear the old men speaking because they sounded too far away and didn't speak loud and not clear. Sometimes I couldn't understand it. But I would try, and then I would say to my Kukum, what's he saying, Kukum? What did he say? What does that mean? And she would just shush me and tell me to be quiet and listen. And that's another aspect of how that sovereignty in that individual, in that child, in that spirit that was asking questions was developed. She didn't tell me what she thought they said. She didn't give me an interpretation. She wanted me to develop the curiosity so that I would search and understand for myself what it was. And I sort of have lived my life that way, is to try and understand. I mentor with languages now. I mentor individuals in languages. And I've been asked to help in other areas, and wherever I can help, I help. And I think that's all I'll say right now. Thank you so much.
Okay. That's because she knew I was going to come up and give her rose. She knew. She had like 3 minutes left to spare. She's a professional speaker.
My name is Peter Bigstone. I'm a full-blooded Nakota. And I was going to speak in my language, but 100 of you people might not be able to understand one word. But I'm going to say a few words because it's my language. And I'd like to share I share that every day with students that I have. Now that they cut my hours down, I kind of like I'm the last speaker. I'm the last speaker of Nakota. So today I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, nagahanda netenim no tangane. Mitugash transmatotin. Dagoch netene ea. Hoxina was staying in the abek the nose. A magiabe. Henle, we trust the Anawazi, Mako. We koga on the Zeta 10. Hoxina Hokshina Warste Niti Yabikte, Mangya. That means good boy. But he was a Heyoka. And his name was Warste Hoksh, good boy. And he gave me that name. Now I carry 3 Indian names. One is Wayaga Yam, 3 feathers. And I carry a Cree name that my lodge brother, he was actually my brother. He called me Mai Kankanipuit, Standing Wolf, and that's my Cree name. He was half Cree and half Cinnabon, so he gave me a name, He bestowed that on me. But I grew up with my grandfather when I was 7 years old. My dad and my mom parted ways. And I waited 30 years for them to get back together. And they died 15 years ago, and both of them 4 months apart. They must have loved each other, so they came back together. And they taught me something valuable with my grandfather and my grandmother. Because my grandmother was a survivor of Indian wars. My grandfather was a survivor of Indian wars too. And near my home country where he was shot, that's how come he carried that name, Nabekse, Nabe Moksabin. And I have tapes that Indiana University gave me, confirming that his war stories were told, and I have that in my collections of tapes. So that way, he told me, he said that way you don't have to lie about anything. And I'm a survivor too of day school, and I'm a survivor of residential school. I'm a survivor of the 60 scoop. And every day I talk about it, being who I am today. I ask for blessings for everybody, even the ones that hurt me, try to take my language away. But now that I can give it out, I ought to teach my little kids. Sorry, I got a little bit emotional, but I as one teach language. I teach culture. I teach tradition. I teach sign language. I teach horse therapy. And I have many ceremonies that I have, and I have bundles for a lot of other stuff. I was one of the lucky ones to have a certificate to teach the Cinnabon language, which is Nakota language. And I have nobody to teach. Nobody to certify me in Saskatchewan, because I'd laugh at them. Because well, going through that process of earning my certificate, I had to teach some of them guys how to talk their language, that our Nakota language. And now that my dad is gone, he was my dictionary. I used to say, Dad, how do you say so-and-so? Snoyaying tauka. Nishin anikota knows. You're a Cinnabon. You should be able to learn that. You should be able to teach somebody about that word, what it means. Then I'd be guessing, and oh yeah, okay, now I know what you're talking about, So I have 7 different dictionaries from each reservations that I go up to. I was a college professor in Fort Peck Community College. I'm a linguistic expert, and I'm a translator. And my grandfather's upbringing was very instrumental in what my language is all about. I was taught from day one, when we used to sit on a hill. We used to say, "Grandson, let's go up on the hill." Well, my grandma was gone. And we'd sit on there. Land-based teaching, he taught me. 7 years old. Flying around up there, zitkana, a bird. It might be a hawk, cheddar, chashka. There's two ways to say it. A chicken hawk is cheddar. Chashka is a big hawk. And wamani, eagle, hoyatanga. Things like that I was taught at a young age. And the grasses that grow around you, the trees that are there, out there, they all had names. And he always said, I always think about that movie there, anyway, what it says, he dances, what? No, that other one. Anyway, where he teaches that young fella, that cop guy, remember? Well, that one, I always remember that, and I remember what my grandfather taught me about, and hey, Neremianos, and Grandpa used to say that, and I remember him, and it brings back some sweet memories when I talk about my grandfather, because here's the man that brought me up till I was a young man, and I owe him lots. And I always say that he put something on my shoulders. He made me pack my language on my shoulders. I get it from up here because I want my adult children to know their language, their heritage, their upbringing, their family heritage, land-based lifestyle. I teach genealogy about all our people, because I come from a big, large family. I come from a pheasant rump side, which my grandmother was sit on stone, whose dad was pheasant rump. And on my dad's side, a ocean man. That was my grandfather's uncle. Ocean man was my grandfather. My grandfather on my dad's side, his uncle. And the last hereditary chief of White Bear was my grandfather, Chief Jimmy Bigstone. If there was any royalty, I would have been a real royalty kind of a guy. But I'm just an ordinary guy, so I just don't really care about it. Because nobody gave me a crown, so I don't really... But anyway, I learned songs from my grandfather. I learned Gohomni from my dad. He taught me a lot of things that I do today. I teach Gohomni to a group of boys. It's Nakota songs, love songs, and I was taught all kind of ceremonial songs. So that's something I'm very proud of doing with them little kids, that they can understand. Because Nakota is, that language has to be there. every ceremony has to have a language where we put that in place. And I teach horse therapy. I got about 15 horses at home, and I'm downsizing. I was 39 horses I had, but I'm downsizing. So in the springtime, I start training horses and doing these things. Mind you, I'm 76 years old, and I'm not as spry, and I'm not as tough as I used to be. But anyway, something I want to tell you about. Before I done my lodge, I came on a buffalo. I came upon a live buffalo. He was on a hill, on Medicine Wheel Hill on Pheasant Rump. And my cousin, he's like a brother to me. I miss him dearly. He's gone to the spirit world. His book is over there, which I helped him just a little bit. And while he was trying to help me sit on that hill, all the other guys got kicked off. They got kicked off. Oh, what a time. You want to shut this off for me? That should be a minute, huh? Yeah. Anyway, I was sitting on the hill. Well, we had a sweat that evening, and this buffalo came up to me, a live one. They call it Big Boy or something like that. And he came from Medicine Wheel Ranch. I went and sat in the hill. I went and fasted for 4 days. Visions galore. And my grandfather told me, make a lodge. Make a lodge so that your people will prosper. He said, we tone in Tawa dead, it's oak the nose. We tone in that that lifestyle that you'll live will live with you for a long time. So today I keep that commitment. This summer I'll be doing my 19th lodge. We do them in fours, like the seasons, like the time of day, like the things that we live today. We were a baby. We come and be a...
My Valentine?
Yeah. We became teenagers, adults. Now we're old people. Ungana binoj. Ne magana tendetentach ne tendetamo. I'm an old man now with chachtiana. Like I was teasing Sai here. I told him, with chachtiana tendetanosh. You are an old man, We don't call us elders, by the way. You know what? It's better to call us knowledge keepers. There's knowledge keepers out there, but they're only sleeping. That's what I always say. They're only sleeping. They don't want us to talk about it. Maybe they can't grow from it because of residential school, day school, being a 60 scoop survivor. Maybe that's why. I don't know. But you pray for those old elders. You know, like you pray for everybody here. You know, you guys are all, when I say you guys are my relative, you always remind me of somebody. You know, this lady right here, the one that gave me that flower, she reminded me of my mom come and tell me, she come and told me, you know, like, here's a piece of bannock and stuff in your mouth and keep quiet now, huh? You talk too much. But anyway, thank each and one of you guys. We told you get to our net to Higauka. Won't knack behind the net and was looking won't knack chair. One of us, when we took us a magia, where knaga hunted in Tunsiwo, and Otanach Chegewo, Otanach Iawo, Otanach Echumwo. So I follow that philosophy. You talk straight, you talk honest, you don't lie. Because if you get caught in your lie, somebody will say, you're telling lies. We have a lot of critics. But being a linguistic expert, I all tell everybody, you know, that there's ways of taking it in a greater length, you know. Wichoni is tough, our lifestyle. And we live in a good way. So every day, bless yourself and ask the Creator that you thank Him for the day He's going to give you. I seen an old man telling me many years ago, I seen a man telling me, you know, Peter, you don't walk away from somebody that's going to ask you a question, because you might have the answer for somebody. You might have that gift to tell that person life is a little short, maybe, you know. So I thank each one of you guys. You know, my wife was here, she would have been making signs, going like this, you know. Hey, you know what that means? You know what that means? If you do that to me, yeah, because I'm a Cinnabon, because I'm the cutthroat.
And I just have to add, you know, the elders really are comedians in hiding. You know, they're just like, we can only do so many things, but the elders do all kinds of things. Oh, this is for somebody? Oh, okay. Alrighty, so our next elder is Carol, I think. So Carol, I'll turn it over to you. And again, I won't give you a flower as a message, but I'll give you a pine cone. Because we have pine cones up here too. The hotel is probably going to say, Charlotte, where's all our flowers? Pine cone.
Het låt salut in Sizi Carol Hushese. Marcina san SCII ja no halti dano hisla. How are you, everybody? My name is Carol Estrolshanen. I thank the SCII for letting me come. And thank you all for listening. I feel like I'm put on a spot here with all those beautiful eyes looking at me. But anyway, I'm a residential survivor. I lost my language when I was going to school. 10 years I've been in the residential, and during the 2 months, my grandparents and my parents would teach me the cultural ways. And 2 months is not a lot of time to learn all that, because you tend to forget it in the next 10, like, 1 year, like 10 months, you tend to forget it. But anyway, my parents and my grandparents never gave up on us. They taught us every day. They talked Dane to us. Ama Dane Sonsina, Dane IST. And they never stopped. And my dad was a man of very few words. And when he says something in Dane, we obey, we listen. Because that one time we pushed his button. And you know what I mean, like we got him mad. I got him mad, and man, oh man, there's no way I wanted to see that face and that madness on him again. So till today, like my late dad, he's gone now, but I've never questioned him. I've always obeyed him because of that. Nowadays, kids, they don't do that. They don't, like you tell them to do something, they don't bother listening. I always say we must have been really good listeners in those days, like in the 50s, 60s. Like we were really good listeners. And everything was taught to us in our language. There's a senator, a late senator, maybe some of you know him. His name is Frank McIntyre. He's from Pachonak. He used to work with MLTC. He said at one conference he was at, and I believe what he said. I'll say it in Dane and then I'll try and translate it in English, even though I don't know how to translate it. But he said, "Dana ayanelti constantly teddarok esi dana ayanelti ayarotu horyun asia benarini hasi." To me, that sounds like speak your language like a wildfire spreading, and only then you will understand everything. That's what he said. And that's true, because when I was in residential, every time I came back home, I was caught in between. When I went home, I had to speak my language, which I didn't really want to, because I was told I had to speak in English, and that was my way of life when I went to school. So I had a hard time trying to understand the Dene language. I even pretended I didn't know how. I pretended I didn't know what they were saying. And that's how low I went. Until in my 40s, when I started teaching, I talked in Dene. Everywhere I went, I talk in Dene, only in Dene. When I'm in a mixed group, I talk in English, but I spoke in Dene. And speaking the Dene language is everything. It's your identity, your land, your cultural. It's everything. We were told that Native people, First Nations people, are poor. Well, let me tell you, our language is gold. As a matter of fact, our language is priceless. Teach your children the language. They will understand everything when you teach them. They will bring back our values. They will bring back the respect, the humility, the trust, the love, the caring, all this. And we learn those in cultural. When you go in cultural, like you gotta, when we take our kids to the cultural ways, they'll say, today we're gonna learn how to be listeners, like good listeners, to be attentive. And so we're going to, and we would do things like chopping woods, and they have to listen to it and all that. And by the end of the day, we'd sit together and we'd talk about, what did you hear? And they would name everything that we did, everything. They wouldn't miss a thing. They would name that. And I said, that's called listening. That's what you should do in school too. I know that school, it's book orientated, which is the bad part of it. When I was teaching, I wanted to teach the traditional way, but I was told that's not in the curriculum. But I found out that many students weren't book orientated. They have to be student orientated. I had one little student who didn't talk, who was part syndrome, some sort of syndrome, HD, I don't know what you call that type of a student. Like he couldn't sit still for even a minute. He was always up and going, and every time we took him to a different place, teachers would get after him and say, sit down, quit walking around, sit down. And when we took this kid to the cultural way, to a cultural camp, he was a different person. He would take some tea and give it to the elders. He would sit with the elders and ask, what's this, what's that? And he would go to an elder, a male elder, and say, why, show me how to do this, and all that. He was just so different. He wasn't running around. He was just so quiet, so peaceful. So cultural ways does good for students too. It calms them down, really calms them down. And also, language has humor. There's a lot of humor in language. I was gonna tell you a story, but I noticed there's a camera there. And I was thinking to myself, oh no, I better not tell this story, because one of these days the students might look at it, because it's X-rated 30. But anyway, I'll tell it. It's not as bad, but I won't say the X-rated part in English. Anyway, I was teaching Native studies back home, and we were doing cultural. We took them cultural, and by the end of the year, I told them, I want you to draw me something about cultural. What does cultural mean to you? We did all those things. We did canoeing, we went rabbit snaring and everything. And so they started drawing. And then, I was just fresh in grade 12. This was in grade 12, I was teaching. And by golly, those grade 12s are like 2 feet bigger than me, I'm just a little short little person here. And I was so used to teaching nursery and kindergarten, they're so small. And when I wanted to display their work, I put it eye level, like my eye level, where kindergarten little kids would look. And then this teacher here, this science teacher, comes up to me and touched me on the back, on my shoulder, and he says, Carol, he said, do you know that you're teaching grade 12? He said, they're taller than you, and you put their work down below here. And I said, oh yeah, I forgot, I better put it up there. So, because I can't climb on chairs, I'm scared of heights, so I put their work a little bit upper where I could reach it, and some I couldn't go any further. So my friend came, she was a janitor. The husband and wife were janitors. So she came, and I said to her, Margaret, can you help me? Can you get on a chair and climb on a chair and help me put these up? He said, so she said, okay. She put it up there. Now the title, she couldn't reach the title. She couldn't put it above where she put the work for me. And so I said, just wait. I'll wait for somebody that when it comes around. This is the Dene part. So those that speak in Dene, they'll tell you. Anyway, her husband just come out of the classroom, and I said to him, I said, I hear the people laughing over there. They'll explain to you. Like it came out the wrong way. What I wanted to say, there's the English part, but I won't say the Dene part. The English part, what I wanted to say was, your wife just put up the display for me. Now can you help me put the other display up for me? Because we can't reach it. But that's not how it turned out. Well, thank you for listening.
See, what did I say? They're all comedians in hiding. Oh, jeez. So now we're at the break. We're all going to go to the Dene table, or we're going to come over here to Jessie. What did she say? So our last elder, our knowledge keeper on the panel is Sai standing. And thank you so much for, there's Scott and I at lunchtime. We're like, it's not that much. You'll be the last speaker. Let's see what else. What else can we say to convince him? Well, you're doing language. You could talk about that. Talk about anything you want. So we just want to thank Sai for, at 5 minutes to 1, saying, I guess so, sure. So thank you.
How we talk yapi. Wakaya na je mak yapi. Ami chante washte de was na pech use yapi. I just said my Dakota name is Wakaya Naji, and I said all my relatives, and I said I very shake hands with every one of you and with a good heart. That's my Dakota way. I'll start with a little bit of about myself and about our community where I come from. Where I'm from, Wahpetuan Dakota Nation. It's just 8 miles northwest of Prince Albert, and we're Dakota. And our community is a very spiritual community. We still carry on our spiritual ways, the teachings of the white buffalo calf woman. We have our sweat lodges, pipe ceremonies, all that, and we even have our sun dances every June. So, and with our initiative, our sweat lodges, the little children, the boys, they go in there and they pray, and they pray in Dakota, and that's how they learn it in their language in a prayer. So when I have a fluent, my first language is Dakota. So when I go to the gas station, and fill up, and those little kids are coming up speaking Dakota to me because they know I speak Dakota. So that's a start of how our community is. Well, we're part of the Ocheti Shakoi. That's the 7 council fires, and that's our nation. And we're the Wahpetuan, there's Dewakata, Ihanktuan, and Sitetuan. There's 7 really major groups. And there's 2 groups of Nakota, Ihanktuan and Ihanktuni. And Dakota has 4 groups, and the Tetuan, the Lakota, is a one group, and they speak the L dialect. So that's a little background about our community, our governance, and our way of life. And you know, this morning I was listening to land-based education, and I always wondered what that meant, you know, because lately people are talking about land-based. What are they talking about? You know, they go take kids out and go make some bannock or cook something, you know, and what are they learning, you know? But this morning when I heard first about exactly what land-based education means, it really hit me. Land-based education to us, our wichocha, our way of life. You know, that's finally I got what land-based education means. And it includes spirituality, our ways of life, our language, our respect for all the animals, plants, everything. And I'm really happy, I'm glad that now, see, my daughter and I teach Dakota, our language on our community, and we're going to start teaching Dakota people in Saskatoon. We applied for a grant and we got a grant to teach Dakota, so we've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years. And just we just invite people at our community, and the ones that are interested, children, elders, and we have a core of elders who speak Dakota, and we use them to teach other communities. So we're trying to keep our wichocha and our language alive, because as what my friends here said, that's our future. You know. I also want to talk about our values and our virtues, because we have 7 virtues or values that we call wamushida. You know, I don't know. I mean, I think you know all the other ones, and waditaka, to be brave, and to be you know, all those value systems. This is what we are taught, but we've forgotten all those now, and we're starting to get those values back, you know, into our people. And the other thing is, I touched a little bit about Pitesawi. Way back when the times were tough, Pitesawi came to our people and brought the pipe to our people and told us to use it and pray with the pipe. And not only with the teaching of the pipe, she also brought the 7 teachings, you know, and those are our spiritual teachings, like inipi, pipe ceremony, Wiwine Wachipi, Sundance, all those, and then there are 7 of those. And there's one there, it's called Making of Relatives, and we practice quite a few of them, but there's 2 we still have to practice. And we're kind of lucky because we're related with the Nakota people, South Dakota, Minneapolis, way down in Oklahoma and all that. So we all still meet. We call it Ocheti Shako. We usually meet in Rapid City, and there's people that are elders or that, you know, are teaching in universities, and their PhDs, their doctors together, and yet they also practice their spiritual, you know, their Dakota or Lakota education, they call it. This one guy was teaching in university. He says, "There I got my PhD. I'm teaching at the university. I went home and I didn't know anything about my Lakota education." So he resigned and went back to his community in Pine Ridge and learned all the spiritual ways. And now he's teaching that to all his children, grandchildren. And my Tahashi, Peter here, touched on it. He said about the elders. In Dakota, I guess in our Ocheti Shakoya, we have it's different types of elders. Wapia Wichashta, that's the medicine man. on, and then there's one that very knowledgeable about roots, and then we charge the Tonka up, because of the wise person, sort of the knowledge keeper. So I think I fit into one of the knowledge keepers, because I'm not a medicine man. I don't conduct ceremonies, you know. So, and then I think there's 4 or 5 different types of elders. We have to do more research and get that down, you know, because, and as you said, they don't call us elders, you know. But anyway, I'm glad I was able to fit in. I was just going on a Zoom call. I was just going to go on my Zoom call, and she said, "Can you come and speak?" I said, "Okay," so I missed my Zoom call. but I was promised a per diem anyway.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry, that's the most fun I've had in the last 6 months. It's like anytime I get to spend time with elders, I always just have fun. And I don't know if that's true for anybody else, but they just bring such a wealth. So let's give them another round of applause.